Is Starlink the most unreliable internet service provider that we have ever used? Well, it's quickly becoming that way. Let me explain. About 4 months, we finally got Starlink. In fact, I uploaded this video on May 10th. Here we go. It snaps into place. So the whole setup process took about 5 or 6 minutes, but once it was set up, we started doing some speed tests. Our very first speed test on the phone, we got between 80 megabits and 120 megabits down. And of course, when we first got Starlink, we were really excited because we live out here in the middle of the desert and we don't have a lot of internet options. We had Verizon, MiFi, we have T-Mobile home internet, and those work to a degree, but we need something faster because I do a lot of work online. So hence Starlink. And for a couple of months, it worked great. Install was fine. We installed Starlink based on the instructions that came with it. We have the Starlink satellite on top of our house. There are absolutely no obstructions whatsoever. Clear view of the sky. And like I said, for a few months it worked great. It was very reliable. But then the problem started happening. Here's the problem. Occasionally, Starlink will simply disconnect from the internet. Just spontaneously disconnect. So I did some research online, especially on Reddit's Starlink forum, which is very, very huge, very big, a wealth of information about Starlink. And a lot of people have had this problem, but the difference is their Starlinks, or most of them, reconnect within 30 or 60 seconds or so, maybe a couple of minutes at worst. Starlink will correct itself and reconnect with the internet. In our case, that was not happening at all. So we could connect to our Starlink router from inside the house, but the router was not able to communicate in some way with the internet. We were just not getting internet access, even though we were able to connect with this Starlink router. And that has happened repeatedly over the last month or two. It's gotten so bad that we basically can't use Starlink right now because it just will not connect to the internet. So here's what I did to troubleshoot this problem. First things first, I did what anybody would do with a piece of hardware that's not working right. I simply turned it off and then turned it back on again. To do that, I unplugged the power cable and unplugged the cable that's running to the satellite dish, left it out for, 30, 60 seconds or so, and plugged it back in. That maybe worked once or twice, but it wasn't a reliable solution. And so I did some more research on Reddit, and it looked like you really have to let the router be unplugged, sit there without power for at least 30 minutes. That really allows the router to power cycle fully and then reconnect once you plug it back in. So I started to do that. And again, that may have worked a couple times, but yet again, that was not a reliable solution. So I unplugged everything, left it for 30 minutes, plugged it back in. 9 times out of 10, that would not fix it. I remember one time I did that about 3 or 4 times back to back, and finally the 4th time Starlink decided that it wanted to connect back up. But obviously we can't go forward with this. That is not a long-term solution. And I also tried factory resetting the router. And to do that, you have to unplug and plug back in the Starlink router 3 times in rapid succession, basically as fast as you can. So unplug it, plug it back in, unplug it, plug it back in 3 times, and that will factory reset your router. So I did that, and it did factory reset. So I set everything back up as if it was a brand new install, but unfortunately, that did not work either. And I also read that you can try the stow feature, which tells the satellite don't connect to any satellites in the sky and prepare yourself for shipment. So for example, if you're in an RV or you are mobile with your Starlink, you would stow the dish, move it to where you want to go, and then simply unstow it and it'll connect back up with the Starlink network. So I even tried that a couple of times by stowing it in the Starlink app and then unstowing it, and that, of course, did not work either. So I tried 3 different solutions to this, and none of them provided a reliable way to get past this problem. So the next step was to contact Starlink. Try as I might, I could not find a tech support number for Starlink. If you know of one, please drop it in the comments below because I've been looking for it for, well, 2 or 3 months now. So the only way to contact Starlink, and the only way I know of to contact Starlink, is to send them a message using the Starlink app on your phone. Now, they don't make it easy. You can't just go into messages, create a new message, and send it off to them. You have to go through their troubleshooting steps first. So here's what I did. I picked one of the troubleshooting problems that was close to my problem. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom of their troubleshooting steps, which I have done, by the way. I've done all those troubleshooting steps. And I clicked the little down thumb. That means this did not work. I need more help. That will enable you to send a message to Starlink from within the messages area. So you're effectively submitting a trouble ticket to Starlink, and that is how I did it. So in the message, I described the problem. The Starlink router was up. We were able to connect to the router just fine, but the router was not getting access to the internet. I could not go online. So there's some kind of a problem here. What can you do to help me? So Starlink responded within 6 hours or so, and they admitted, yes, we're seeing some problems, some communication problems between your router and the Starlink dish. So we're going to send you another router and another 75-foot power cable on us, so no charge to you. It's like, okay, that's fine. So within a couple weeks, I got the replacement router and the cord. I reinstalled everything, set up the new router, reran the cable all the way up to our satellite dish on the roof to see if that would fix the problem. And it worked for about 3 days, but yet again, the same problem reoccurred. Able to connect to Starlink's router, no internet access whatsoever. And now, regardless of what I do, regardless of the troubleshooting steps I do, I can reset this thing 10 times. It will not connect to the internet. So I contacted Starlink one more time. I sent them another message saying that, thanks for the replacement hardware, but this did not work. What do I have to do to actually use your service? And at this point, they can't even see the router, even though the router is online. And you know that the router is turned on and ready to go by this little tiny white dot at the bottom of the router. Why Starlink makes that so hard to find, I have no idea, but it is there. It's at the very bottom of your router if you look for it. It's between the power cable and the network cable. So if anything, it seems like the replacement router actually made the problem worse. Starlink can't even see it from their end. So I contacted them again, like I said, and now they're going to send me a replacement Starlink kit. So everything new, I have to go through all of this again, reinstall everything with brand new hardware. So obviously this is pretty frustrating right now because we paid the upfront fee, which was over $500 for the equipment, and we're also paying $110 a month for a service that we can't use. However, to Starlink's credit, they did credit me 1 month's of service. So that's $110 back because we cannot get online right now. So at least they did that. And that is where we stand right now. I got a shipment notification, so the new kit should be here within the next week or so. Hopefully that fixes it, but if it doesn't, quite frankly, I don't know. Maybe Starlink's just not going to work for us, even though I have a nearby neighbor where Starlink works just fine. So I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's happening here, but I wanted to record this video. So if you're having similar problems, you know some of the troubleshooting steps that you can go through, and hopefully those steps work for you. But if those troubleshooting steps don't work, use the method that I detailed earlier to contact Starlink's tech support through the Starlink app. And hopefully somebody will respond to you and maybe ship you some new hardware if they have to go that route. So I'm going to leave this video here. Once I get the new Starlink kit, I will reinstall everything. I will record that and let you know if this actually fixed anything. So we come to some closure with this very frustrating Starlink problem. All right, that's it for this video. I hope the new kit works.